The deep space research vessel U-East Discovery drifted silently through the void at the edge of human territory. Captain Marcus Webb stood on the bridge watching the stars through the main view screen. He had been commanding this ship for 3 years now, and the routine patrol missions were starting to feel endless. The Discovery was one of Earth's newest exploration vessels, equipped with the latest technology for finding new worlds and making first contact with alien species. So far they had found plenty of empty planets, but no signs of intelligent life. Lisa Rodriguez sat at the communications station running her daily checks on the long-range sensors. She was the best communications officer in the fleet and could pick up signals that others missed. The bridge was quiet, except for the soft hum of the ship's engines and the occasional beep from the control panels. Webb liked the peaceful atmosphere, but sometimes wondered if they would ever find anything interesting out here, in the darkness between stars. Dr. Alex Turner worked in his laboratory 2 decks below the bridge. He was the ship's expert on alien languages and cultures. Turner had studied every known form of communication and had developed new ways to translate unknown languages using computer programs. He often joked that he was the most prepared person in human space for a job that might never exist. His lab was filled with computers and translation equipment that had never been used for their intended purpose. Karen Mitchell ran the ship's artificial intelligence systems from her station next to the bridge. She had designed most of the A programs herself, and they were far more advanced than anything else in the fleet. Her computers could process information faster than any human, and could learn new patterns in minutes instead of years. Mitchell often talked to her A systems like they were friends, and sometimes Webb wondered if she preferred their company to humans. On this particular day, the Discovery was completing a survey of a star system near the galactic rim. The system had 7 planets, but none of them could support human life. Webb was about to give the order to move on to the next system when Rodriguez suddenly sat up straight in her chair. She had detected something unusual on the long-range sensors and was trying to isolate the signal. "Captain, I'm picking up something strange," Rodriguez said as she adjusted her controls. "It's very weak, but it doesn't match any natural phenomena, no. The signal is definitely artificial." Webb moved to stand behind her station and looked at the readings on her screen. The signal was barely visible among the background noise of space, but there was definitely a pattern to it. "Can you clean it up?" he asked. Rodriguez worked her controls for several minutes, trying to filter out the interference. Slowly the signal became clearer, and they could see it was definitely created by some kind of technology. "Sir, this is not human," she said with excitement in her voice. "The frequency patterns are completely different from anything we use." Webb felt his heart start beating faster. After years of searching, this might finally be the first contact they had been hoping for. "Record everything and send it down to Dr. Turner immediately," he ordered. "Karen, I want you to help him analyze this signal. This could be what we've been looking for." Turner rushed to his lab as soon as he received the transmission. He had dreamed of this moment for his entire career, but now that it was happening, he felt nervous and excited at the same time. The signal was unlike anything in his databases, and he realized he was looking at the first confirmed alien communication in human history. Mitchell joined Turner in his lab, and together they began working to decode the message. Her AI systems started looking for patterns, while Turner tried to understand the basic structure of the language. The signal repeated every few minutes with slight variations that suggested it was some kind of automated distress call. For hours they worked together, making slow progress. The alien language was completely different from human speech, but gradually they began to identify individual words and concepts. The AI systems learned faster than Turner had expected, and soon they had a basic understanding of the message structure. "I think we have something," Mitchell said as she looked at the latest translation. The AI is identifying this as a plea for help. They're asking for assistance from someone they call the Deathworlders from the third planet. Turner looked confused. Deathworlders from the third planet? Could they mean Earth? We're the third planet from our sun. As they continued working, the message became clearer. The aliens called themselves the Vellani, and they were under attack by something called the Kresh Dominion. They specifically mentioned that they had heard of humans and believed only beings from a death world could help them survive. Webb arrived in the lab just as they finished the first complete translation. He read the message with growing amazement and concern. The Vellani were describing their beautiful homeworld being destroyed by an enemy that showed no mercy. They had heard stories about humans surviving on a dangerous planet and were begging for help from Earth's military forces. How? Do they know about us? Webb asked. We've never made contact with any alien species before. Turner shook his head. I don't know, but somehow our reputation has spread beyond human space. They seem to think Earth is some kind of death world that produces incredibly tough warriors. The message continued with coordinates for the Vellani homeworld and desperate pleas for immediate assistance. The aliens described the Kresh as ruthless conquerors who enslaved or destroyed every species they encountered. The Vellani had tried to negotiate, but the Kresh were not interested in peace. Webb studied the star charts and realized the Vellani system was far beyond the edge of human territory. It would take weeks to get there, and Earth Command had never authorized missions that far from home. But the desperation in the alien message was clear even through the translation barriers. Jake Morrison entered the lab, carrying the ship's security reports. As chief security officer, he was responsible for the safety of the crew, and he had been following the translation efforts closely. Captain, if this message is real, then we're looking at a genocide in progress, he said grimly. These Vellani are asking for our help because they think we're their only hope. Rita Hayes joined them a few minutes later after hearing about the discovery. As the ship's Marine commander, she understood military situations better than anyone else on board. She had read the translation and was already thinking about what kind of enemy they might be facing. Sir, we can't ignore this, Hayes said firmly. If there's a species out there destroying peaceful civilizations, then we have a responsibility to act. This is exactly why we came out here to explore space. Webb looked around the lab at his senior officers. He could see the determination in their faces and knew they were right. But he also knew that taking the discovery beyond human space without authorization could end his career and put his crew in terrible danger. The nearest Earth Command base is 6 weeks away, Webb said slowly. By the time we get authorization and reinforcements, these Vellani could be extinct. But if we go alone, we'll be completely on our own, with no backup and no clear idea what we're walking into. Turner pulled up the star charts, showing the route to Vellani space. Captain, I've been studying the message details, and I think the Vellani have been fighting this war for months. They're running out of time and options. We might be their last chance. Mitchell's computers chimed with new analysis results. Sir, I've been calculating travel times and fleet movements based on the message content. If we leave now, we can reach the Vellani system before the final crush assault. But if we wait for Earth Command approval, we'll arrive too late to help anyone. Webb stared at the translation for a long time, thinking about his options. He had sworn an oath to protect innocent life and explore the galaxy peacefully. But he had also sworn to follow Earth Command protocols and keep his crew safe. Now those two duties were pulling him in opposite directions. Finally, he made his decision. Lisa set course for the Vellani system maximum speed. Jake, I want battle stations and all defensive systems ready. Rita, prepare your Marines for possible combat operations. Alex and Karen, keep working on that translation. I want to know everything we can learn about these aliens before we arrive. The Discovery changed course and accelerated toward the unknown system, carrying humanity's first response to an alien distress call. Webb stood on the bridge, watching the stars streak past, and wondered what they would find when they reached their destination. He had just committed his ship and crew to a mission that could change the course of galactic history, or get them all killed in the process. The Discovery dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Villani system and immediately began scanning for signs of life. What they found took everyone's breath away. The Villani homeworld of the Sara was unlike anything humans had ever seen. The planet glowed with a soft blue light from massive crystal formations that covered its surface. Cities made of living coral stretched across continents, and graceful spires reached toward the sky like works of art. Captain Webb stood on the bridge studying the sensor readings with amazement. "My God, it's beautiful," he whispered. The planet looked like something from a fairy tale, with no signs of pollution or environmental damage. Vast gardens covered the land between cities, and the ocean sparkled with pure, clean water. But the sensors also detected troubling signs. Several cities showed damage from orbital bombardment, and refugee camps dotted the countryside. Defensive satellites drifted in broken pieces around the planet, and emergency transmissions filled the communication channels. The Villani were clearly under siege and running out of time. Lisa Rodriguez worked to establish contact with the planet's government, while Dr. Turner prepared translation protocols. After several tense minutes, they received a response from someone identifying themselves as High Counselor Zaranel. The alien's voice was musical and gentle, even through the universal translator. "Humans from Earth, we have prayed for your arrival," the voice said with obvious relief. "I am Zaranel, leader of what remains of our people. Please tell us you have come to help us survive this nightmare." Webb stepped forward to respond. "Hi, Counselor, this is Captain Marcus Webb of the Earthship Discovery. We received your distress call and came as quickly as we could. What is your current situation?" There was a pause before Zaranel replied, and when she spoke again, her voice was filled with sadness. "Captain Webb, the Kresh Dominion has been destroying our world for 3 months. They demand our complete surrender and the enslavement of our people. We have tried to negotiate, but they show no mercy to anyone who opposes them." Lieutenant Amy Peterson joined the communication team to help with translation duties. She had studied alien psychology and was fascinated by the first chance to actually speak with non-human intelligence. Peterson noticed that the Villani language had no words for concepts like war strategy or tactical retreat. "High Counselor, we need to understand your enemy," Webb said. "Tell us about the Kresh Dominion and their military capabilities." Zaranel's response revealed the terrible scope of the conflict. The Kresh had conquered dozens of peaceful species across this sector of the galaxy. They were master warriors who lived for battle and conquest. Their technology was advanced, and their ships were designed specifically for war. Most species surrendered immediately, rather than face total destruction. "The Kresh have 12 battle cruisers in orbit around our world," Zaranel continued. "Their ground forces number in the hundreds of thousands. We have energy shields and some defensive weapons, but we are not warriors. Our people have never learned to fight because we have never needed to before." Webb requested permission to send a shuttle to the planet's surface for face-to-face negotiations. Zaranel agreed immediately and provided coordinates for the capital city. Dr. Turner and Lieutenant Peterson joined Webb on the shuttle, along with a small security team led by Jake Morrison. The shuttle descended through Desara's atmosphere and approached the crystal city of Velketh. Up close, the alien architecture was even more impressive. The buildings seemed to grow from the ground, like living things and energy fields, connected the structures in patterns of incredible beauty. But many buildings showed blast damage, and some areas lay in ruins. They landed in a plaza, surrounded by tall spires that hummed with soft musical tones. A group of Vellani waited to greet them, and Webb got his first look at an alien species. The Vellani were tall and graceful, with pale blue skin and large dark eyes. They moved like dancers, and their faces showed intelligence and kindness. But Webb could also see fear and exhaustion from months of war. High Counselor Zaranel stepped forward to welcome the humans. She was elderly even by Vellani standards, and carried herself with dignity despite the circumstances. Captain Webb, you honor us with your presence. Please tell me that Earth's mighty fleet follows behind your ship. Webb felt his heart sink as he realized the Vellani expected a massive human armada to arrive at any moment. High Counselor, I'm afraid the Discovery is alone. Earth Command doesn't know about your situation yet, and reinforcements are weeks away. We came as soon as we received your message, but we're only one ship. The disappointment on Zaranel's face was heartbreaking, but she quickly composed herself. Then we must make the best of what we have. Come, let me show you what we face, and perhaps together we can find a way to survive. She led them through the damaged city, while Dr. Turner and Peterson recorded everything they saw. The Vellani had created a peaceful civilization focused on art, science, and philosophy. Their technology was incredibly advanced in areas like medicine and energy production, but they had never developed weapons of war. Engineer Ben Carter studied Vellani technology with growing amazement. Their energy systems were far more efficient than anything humans had built, and their medical equipment could heal injuries that would be fatal on Earth. But their defensive weapons were crude, and their military tactics were almost non-existent. We are healers and builders, Zaranel explained as they walked through a hospital treating wounded civilians. The concept of deliberately harming other beings is alien to our nature. We have defensive shields and energy weapons, but we do not know how to use them effectively in battle. Turner was taking notes on Vellani culture when something occurred to him. High Counselor, how did you learn about humans? We've never made contact with your species before. Zaranel looked surprised by the question. Captain, do you not know? Stories of the death world Earth have spread throughout this entire sector. Traders speak of a terrible planet where every creature must fight to survive from the moment of birth. They say humans are the most dangerous species in the galaxy because your world tried to kill you every day for millions of years. Webb exchanged glances with his officers as they realized how their home planet appeared to other species. Earth's harsh environment and violent history had given humanity a reputation as supreme warriors, even though they had never fought an interstellar war. The traders say humans can survive in any environment and adapt to any threat, Zaranel continued. They claim your species learns to fight before you learn to walk, and that death in battle is considered an honor among your people. We hope that warriors from such a world might be able to help us against the crash. Peterson was recording the conversation when alarms began sounding throughout the city. Vellani military officers rushed into the room with urgent reports for their leader. The Kresh fleet had been detected approaching the outer planets and would arrive at the Sara within 3 days. High Counselor, we need to see your defensive preparations immediately, Morrison said as he assessed the tactical situation. Show us your military installations and weapon positions. What they found was even worse than Webb had feared. The Vellani had energy barriers around their cities and some orbital defense platforms, but no coordinated defense plan. Their soldiers were brave but untrained, and their weapons were designed for crowd control rather than military combat. Commander Rita Hayes arrived on the second shuttle with a team of Marines and immediately began evaluating Vellani defenses. What she found horrified her professional military mind. The aliens had never developed concepts like overlapping fields of fire, tactical retreats, or defensive depth. They planned to stand and fight in place until they were overwhelmed. "Captain, this is a massacre waiting to happen," Hayes reported. Privately, "These people have the technology to put up a real fight, but they don't understand the first thing about warfare. The Kresh will cut through their defenses like paper." Webb contacted the Discovery and ordered all available personnel to the planet's surface. If they were going to help the Velani survive, they needed to completely restructure their military thinking in less than 3 days. It seemed like an impossible task, but Webb was determined to try. Dr. Turner worked with Velani historians to learn more about the Kresh Dominion. What he discovered painted a grim picture of a warrior culture that had been conquering peaceful species for centuries. The Kresh viewed war as the highest form of art and took pride in crushing their enemies completely. "The Kresh have never faced serious resistance," Turner reported to Webb. "Every species they've encountered either surrendered immediately or was destroyed within days. They're not used to fighting opponents who understand military tactics." As night fell over the Crystal City, Webb stood on a balcony looking up at the stars where the Kresh fleet was approaching. In 3 days they would face an enemy that had never lost a battle, with only one human ship and an untrained alien militia. The odds were hopeless, but Webb had made his choice when he decided to answer the distress call. Zaranel joined him on the balcony, and they stood together in comfortable silence for a few minutes. Finally, she spoke in her musical voice. "Captain, Webb, do you think we have any chance of survival?" Webb thought carefully before answering. The next morning, Captain Webb called an emergency meeting with all human personnel and Velani military leaders. Time was running out, and they needed to transform a peaceful civilization into a fighting force in less than 3 days. The task seemed impossible, but Webb had seen humans accomplish incredible things when facing desperate situations. Commander Rita Hayes stood before a group of Velani soldiers trying to explain basic military tactics. The aliens listened carefully, but their faces showed confusion and distress. The concepts of ambush, tactical retreat, and acceptable losses were completely foreign to their peaceful nature. "You must understand that sometimes you need to give up one position to save another," Hayes explained patiently. "Fighting is not about being brave or honorable. It's about winning so your people can survive." Kethvar was the closest thing missing. Velani had to a military commander. He had led their peacekeeping forces for decades, but had never faced a real enemy in battle. The elderly Velani struggled to understand human military thinking and often asked questions that made Hayes realize how different their cultures were. "Commander Hayes, why would we retreat from a position we have sworn to defend?" Kethvar asked with genuine confusion. "Is it not better to die fighting than to abandon our posts?" Hayes took a deep breath and tried to explain. "Kethvar, if you die defending one building, the enemy will just walk past your body and keep attacking. But if you retreat and fight from another position, you can kill more enemies and protect more of your people. Dead heroes can't save anyone." Meanwhile, engineer Ben Carter worked with Velani scientist Myrion to modify their peaceful technology into weapons of war. The aliens had created amazing devices for healing and building, but had never considered using their knowledge for destruction. Carter found ways to turn medical scanners into targeting systems and agricultural equipment into improvised weapons. "Your molecular assemblers can create anything," Carter explained excitedly. "Instead of making food and medicine, we can program them to produce ammunition and explosives. Your construction robots can dig trenches and build fortifications." Myrion looked uncomfortable with the idea of using their life-giving technology. Or violence. Engineer Carter, these devices were created to help people and heal the land. Using them to make weapons feels wrong to our very souls. Carter understood her feelings, but pressed on with the modifications. "Myrion, I know this goes against everything you believe. But if you don't learn to fight, the Kresh will destroy everything you've built. Sometimes you have to do terrible things to protect the people you love. Dr. Turner spent his time studying captured Kresh communications to understand their enemy's psychology. What he learned was disturbing. The Kresh viewed other species as either useful slaves or obstacles to be removed. They had no concept of mercy or negotiation, and saw warfare as the highest form of cultural expression. The Kresh commander is called Warlord Theknol, Turner reported to Webb. He's conquered 17 worlds in the past 5 years and has never lost a battle. The Kresh see this campaign as routine cleanup work. They don't expect any real resistance. Security. Chief Jake Morrison worked with a group of young Vellani, teaching them guerrilla warfare tactics. The aliens were intelligent and learned quickly, but they were horrified by human concepts of stealth and surprise attacks. Many of them became physically ill when Morrison described ambush techniques. You must attack when the enemy least expects it, Morrison explained to his students. Hide in the shadows and strike without warning. Use their confidence against them. A young Vellani named Tormel raised his hand with a troubled expression. Chief Morrison, this sounds like the behavior of criminals and assassins. How can honorable people fight in such a way? Morrison had heard similar questions from dozens of Vellani over the past 2 days. Tormel, when someone is trying to destroy your entire species, honor becomes a luxury you can't afford. The Kresh won't show you any mercy, so you can't show them any either. Communications Officer Lisa Rodriguez intercepted Kresh military transmissions and learned about their battle plans. The enemy fleet consisted of 12 massive warships carrying assault troops and orbital bombardment weapons. They planned to demand surrender and then destroy any remaining resistance with overwhelming force. Captain Kresh are treating this like a training exercise, Rodriguez reported. Their communications are casual and confident. They're not expecting any real opposition from the Vellani. Webb studied the enemy battle plans with his officers and realized they had one advantage. The Kresh had conquered so many peaceful species that they had become overconfident. They expected the Vellani to either surrender immediately or put up token resistance before being crushed. We need to use their arrogance against them, Webb decided. They're not prepared for an enemy that fights back intelligently. If we can surprise them with effective tactics, we might be able to even the odds. The biggest challenge was changing Vellani thinking about warfare itself. Their entire culture was built on cooperation and peaceful resolution of conflicts. The idea of deliberately killing other beings was so alien to them that many Vellani became physically sick when discussing combat tactics. Counselor Zaranel addressed her people over the planetary communication system, trying to prepare them for the coming battle. Her speech was broadcast to every city and settlement on Nisara, and billions of Vellani listened to their leader's words. My people, we face the darkest hour in our history, Zaranel said in her musical voice. The humans have shown us that sometimes violence is necessary to protect those we love. We must set aside our peaceful nature for a few days, so our children can grow up in a peaceful world. Hayes worked around the clock, training Vellani militia units in basic combat skills. The aliens were quick learners, and their advanced technology gave them some advantages, but they lacked the aggressive instincts that made humans natural fighters. She had to teach them not just how to use weapons, but how to think like warriors. Remember that the enemy wants to kill you and everyone you care about, Hayes told a group of Vellani defenders. Don't hesitate and don't show mercy, because they won't show any to you. Your job is to make them pay for every inch of ground they take. Carter and Myrion succeeded in converting several Vellani devices into effective weapons. Medical scanners became targeting systems that could track enemies through walls. Agricultural robots were reprogrammed to plant explosive devices instead of seeds. Construction equipment was modified to build military fortifications instead of beautiful buildings. The irony is remarkable. Carter observed as he watched Velani engineers work on weapon modifications. Your technology is so advanced that even your peaceful devices can be turned into formidable weapons. The Kresh have no idea what they're walking into. Morrison's guerrilla warfare students were making progress despite their cultural resistance to underhanded tactics. The young Velani were starting to understand that survival sometimes required abandoning honor and fighting with every available advantage. Chief Morrison, I think I understand now, Tormel said during a training session. The Kresh have already abandoned honor by attacking peaceful people. We're not becoming like them. We're just using their own methods against them. As the second day ended, Webb received word that Earth Command had finally responded to his emergency. Messages. A fleet was being assembled and would arrive in approximately 3 weeks. Unfortunately, the Kresh would attack tomorrow, and the battle would be over long before help arrived. Dr. Turner made a disturbing discovery while analyzing Kresh military doctrine. The aliens didn't just conquer other species. They deliberately destroyed any signs of advanced culture and enslaved the survivors as manual laborers. If the Kresh won this battle, the beautiful Velani civilization would be erased from the galaxy forever. Captain, this isn't just about military conquest, Turner reported grimly. The Kresh want to eliminate every trace of Velani culture. Their art, their music, their philosophy, everything that makes them unique will be destroyed. We're not just fighting for their lives. We're fighting for their souls. On the final night before the battle, Webb walked through the Crystal City, watching Velani families say goodbye to each other. Children who had never seen violence were being evacuated to underground shelters while their parents prepared to fight for their survival. The sight filled Webb with determination to make the Kresh pay for forcing this peaceful species to become warriors. Hayes conducted a final briefing with her mixed human and Velani units. The defenders were spread across multiple positions around the city, with orders to make the enemy fight for every building. They had 3 days to hold out until Earth reinforcements could arrive. Remember what we've taught you, Hayes told the assembled fighters. The Kresh expect you to line up in neat formations and fight honorably. Instead, you're going to hit them from every direction using every dirty trick we know. Make them think twice about attacking peaceful worlds. Kethvar approached Webb as the human captain made his final preparations. The Velani commander had changed dramatically over the past 3 days. The peaceful administrator had become a grim defender ready to do whatever was necessary to protect his people. Captain Webb, our people call you the bringer of the war knowledge, Kethmar said formally. The Kresh fleet emerged from hyperspace like a swarm of deadly insects. 12 massive warships arranged themselves in perfect formation and began their approach to the Sara. Each vessel was over 2 kilometers long and bristled with weapons designed to reduce planets to smoking ruins. Warlord Deknal commanded the fleet from his flagship and expected this campaign to be over within hours. Captain Webb watched the enemy formation from the Discovery's bridge and felt his blood run cold. The Kresh ships were larger and more heavily armed than anything in the human fleet. His single vessel looked like a toy compared to the approaching armada. But Webb had learned never to judge a fight by size alone, and humans had beaten worse odds before. Lisa opened a channel to the Kresh. Flagship, Webb ordered. Let's see if we can rattle them before the shooting starts. The main screen flickered and showed the bridge of the Kresh command ship. Warlord Deknal appeared as a massive reptilian creature covered in battle scars and wearing elaborate armor. His red eyes showed amusement when he saw the human captain. Addressing him, I am Warlord Deknal of the Kresh Dominion, the alien said in a voice like grinding stone. You will withdraw your pathetic vessel immediately, or be destroyed along with these worthless Velani. This world now belongs to the Kresh. Webb stood straight and looked directly into the alien's eyes. I am Captain Marcus Webb of the United. Earthship Discovery. These people are under our protection now. If you want this world, you'll have to go through us first. Eknal laughed with genuine amusement. One small ship against my entire fleet? Are you insane, human? I have conquered 17 worlds and never lost a battle. Your death will be quick but meaningless. We'll see about that, Webb replied calmly. Earth sends its regards. He cut the transmission and turned to his crew. All hands to battle stations. Show these lizards what humans can do when we're angry. The Discovery was outnumbered 12-1, but it had advantages the Kresh didn't expect. Human ships were built for speed and maneuverability, while the alien vessels relied on overwhelming firepower. Captain Webb had studied the enemy formation and identified weaknesses he could exploit. Lieutenant Colonel Danny Foster led a team of Marines in a desperate gambit that no sane military commander would attempt. Using modified Velani transporter technology, they beamed directly onto the Kresh ships and began sabotaging them from within. The aliens had never faced boarding parties before, and their internal security was unprepared for human Marines. Foster to Discovery were inside their engine compartment, came the Marine commander's voice over the radio. These ships are huge, but they're not designed to repel boarders. We're planting charges on their power systems now. Foster and his men moved through the alien, ship like ghosts striking at critical systems and disappearing before the Kresh could respond. The Marines had trained for zero-gravity combat and ship-to-ship fighting, while the aliens had only experienced planetary battles. Human adaptability gave them a crucial edge in the close-quarters environment. Pilot Sarah Kelly took the Discovery into the heart of the Kresh formation, using tactics that would have been suicide for larger ships. The human vessel danced between the massive alien warships like a fighter plane dodging elephants. Kelly targeted the enemy's engines and communication arrays instead of trying to destroy the heavily armored ships. Captain, I'm reading massive confusion in their fleet communications, Lisa Rodriguez reported from her station. They're not used to fighting an enemy that won't stand still and trade shots. Our hit-and-run tactics are disrupting their coordination. The Kresh had built their tactics around overwhelming firepower and direct confrontation. Human guerrilla warfare was completely outside their experience, and they struggled to adapt to an enemy that refused to fight fair. Their massive guns couldn't target the fast-moving Discovery, and their formation began to break apart. On the planet's surface, Commander Hayes watched the space battle through her tactical display while preparing ground defenses. The Kresh were already launching assault shuttles toward the major cities, but they were flying into a trap. The humans had taught the Velani to fight like cornered animals instead of honorable warriors. All units remember your training, Hayes broadcast to the mixed human and Velani defenders. Let them land and get comfortable, then hit them from every direction. Make them think there's a human soldier behind every rock and tree. The first Kresh assault troops landed in what they expected to be a peaceful city full of helpless civilians. Instead, they found themselves in an urban warfare nightmare, where every building could hide snipers, and every alley could contain an ambush. The Velani had learned human tactics well and used their advanced technology to create deadly surprises. Medical Officer Dr. Patricia Young coordinated battlefield medical care while simultaneously training Velani healers in combat medicine. Aliens had never dealt with battle injuries before, but their medical technology was far superior to human equipment. Under Young's guidance, they became incredibly effective at saving wounded fighters. The Velani medical scanners can detect internal injuries that we would miss completely, Young reported to Hayes. Combined with their healing technology, we can get wounded soldiers back into the fight faster than ever before. The Kresh won't be expecting that kind of medical support. Engineer Carter's weapon modifications were proving devastatingly effective against the Kresh ground forces. Valani construction robots emerged from underground tunnels to attack enemy positions with improvised explosives. Agricultural drones swarmed crush vehicles and planted electromagnetic pulse devices that disabled their electronics. The beauty of this is that the Crush don't recognize our weapons as weapons, Carter explained to his Velani assistants. They see farming equipment and medical devices until it's too late. By the time they realize what's happening, we've already hit them. Back in space, Foster's Marines had succeeded in disabling 3 Crush warships by sabotaging their power systems. The massive vessels drifted helplessly while their crews tried to restore engine power. Captain Webb seized the opportunity to focus his attacks on the remaining active ships. Sarah, take us in close to their flagship, Webb ordered. If we can disable Vecnol's command ship, the rest of their fleet will lose coordination. Kelly, dove the Discovery toward the Crush flagship, using the disabled ships as cover. The alien vessel was so large that its weapons couldn't track a target moving at such close range. The Discovery raked the flagship's hull with laser fire targeting sensor arrays and communication equipment. Warlord Vecnol watched his perfectly organized fleet falling apart around him and felt something he had never experienced before: doubt. These humans fought with a savagery and cunning that defied everything he knew about warfare. Their tactics made no sense, but they were undeniably effective. Tactical officer, why can't we hit that human ship? Vecnol demanded from his command. Throne, it's smaller than our fighters, but it's tearing my fleet apart. The Crush tactical officer looked confused and frightened. Warlord, the humans don't fight like any species we've encountered. They use hit-and-run tactics and refuse to engage in honorable combat. Our weapons are designed for ship-to-ship duels, not this chaos. On Nisara's surface, the battle had become a nightmare for the Crush ground forces. They were used to fighting enemies who lined up in formation and died with honor. Instead, they faced an enemy that attacked from shadows and used every dirty trick imaginable. Velani defenders who looked like helpless civilians would suddenly produce weapons and fight with desperate fury. Jake Morrison led a mixed team of humans and Velani in a raid on the Crush command post. The aliens had established their headquarters in what they thought was a secure area, but Morrison's guerrilla fighters had been watching them for hours. The attack came from 6 directions at once and caught the Crush completely off guard. Remember what I taught you, Morrison shouted to his Velani fighters as they stormed the enemy position. No mercy and no quarter. These invaders would do the same to your children. The young Velani, who had been horrified by human tactics 3 days ago, now fought with a ferocity that surprised even Morrison. They had learned that sometimes survival required abandoning civilization and embracing the savage nature that humans knew so well. Dr. Turner monitored Crush communications and detected growing panic in their ranks. The aliens were reporting impossible things: peaceful farmers who fought like demons, medical equipment that exploded, and an enemy that seemed to be everywhere at once. Their rigid military doctrine had no answer for human improvisation. Captain, the Crush are starting to break, Turner reported excitedly. Their communications show massive confusion, and several units are requesting immediate evacuation. They've never faced an enemy like this before, but the battle was far from over. Warlord Vecnol still commanded 9 functional warships and had hundreds of thousands of ground troops on the planet. The humans had bloodied the Crush. But the enemy still had overwhelming numbers and firepower. Webb made a desperate decision that would either save the day or get everyone killed. He ordered the Discovery to ram the Crush flagship's engine section at maximum speed. The collision would cripple the enemy command ship, but would also destroy his own vessel and strand his crew in space. The Discovery was embedded in the Crush flagship like a spear thrust into the heart of a giant beast. Captain Webb and his surviving crew found themselves trapped inside the enemy vessel with failing life support and no way home. But they were still alive and still fighting, which meant the battle was far from over. "Jake, get your security team together," Webb ordered as he assessed their situation. "We need to fight our way to their command center and take control of this ship. Rita, gather your Marines and secure our escape route. If we can capture their warlord, we might be able to end this war." The interior of the crushed ship was a maze of corridors designed for creatures much larger than humans. Emergency lighting cast eerie shadows on the walls, and the sound of battle echoed through the metal. Passages. Webb led his team deeper into the alien vessel, while emergency repair crews tried to restore power to critical systems. Lieutenant Colonel Foster and his Marines had been fighting inside various crushed ships for hours and were running low on ammunition. But they had learned the layout of enemy vessels and knew how to move through them without being detected. Foster's voice crackled over the radio with urgent tactical information. "Captain, the Kresh are pulling back from their forward positions," Foster reported. "They're regrouping around the command deck, but they're not used to fighting inside their own ships. We can use that against them." Dr. Turner worked frantically to decode Kresh command protocols while the battle raged around him. If they could access the alien communication systems, they might be able to coordinate with the scattered human forces and turn the tide of battle. His portable translation computer sparked and smoked from battle damage, but continued processing data. "Sir, I'm reading massive confusion in their fleet communications," Turner called out as he followed Webb through the twisting corridors. "The other ships don't know what to do without orders from the flagship. If we can reach their command center, we might be able to control the entire fleet." Meanwhile, on Nisara's surface, the ground battle had reached a critical point. Commander Hayes and her mixed human and Valani forces had managed to stop the Kresh advance, but were running out of ammunition and supplies. The enemy still had overwhelming numbers and was beginning to adapt to human tactics. "All units, this is Hayes," she broadcast to her scattered forces. "The Kresh are learning how we fight, and they're starting to counter our tactics. We need to keep them off balance until the space battle is decided." Kethvar led a group of Villani fighters in a desperate attack on a Kresh supply depot. The elderly alien had become a fierce warrior over the past few days, and his people followed him with absolute loyalty. They moved through the Crystal City, like ghosts striking at enemy weak points and disappearing before the Kresh could respond. "Remember what the humans taught us," Kethvar told his fighters as they prepared for another assault. "The enemy expects us to fight with honor, but honor is a luxury we cannot afford. Fight like the Deathworlders fight. Fight to win." Back aboard the flagship, Webb's team encountered their first group of Kresh soldiers in a corridor junction. The aliens were massive reptilian warriors armed with energy weapons and wearing heavy armor. But they were designed for open battlefield combat, not close quarters fighting in narrow spaces. Jake Morrison threw a flashbang grenade into the group of aliens, and Webb's team attacked while they were blinded and confused. The humans moved fast and struck hard, using every advantage their smaller size gave them. The Kresh were powerful, but clumsy in the confined space, and fell to precise human tactics. "Keep moving," Webb urged his team as they stepped over the fallen aliens. "We need to reach the command center before they can organize a proper defense." Dr. Young had established a field hospital in the ruins of a Villani library and was treating wounded from both species. Her advanced medical training, combined with Villani healing technology, was saving lives that would have been lost in any previous conflict. But the casualties were mounting, and she was running out of medical supplies. "Patricia, how are our wounded?" Hayes asked over the radio during a brief lull in the fighting. "Rita, we're losing too many good people," Young replied grimly. "The Villani medical equipment is amazing, but we're getting overwhelmed by the sheer number of casualties. We need to end this soon, or we'll run out of fighters." Engineer Carter had been working with Vellani technicians to create new weapons from whatever materials they could find. The Crystal City was full of advanced technology that could be modified for military use, but time was running out. Every minute the battle continued meant more lives lost on both sides. Ben, what's our ammunition situation? Webb asked over his communicator as his team advanced through the crush ship. Captain, we're down to our last few magazines, Carter replied. I'm trying to modify crush weapons for human use, but their technology is completely different from ours. We need to end this fast. Webb's team finally reached the outer defenses of the Kresh Command Center and found themselves facing the ship's elite guard units. These aliens were larger and better armed than the regular soldiers, and they knew the ship's layout perfectly. The humans would have to fight their way through multiple defensive positions to reach Warlord Deknol. Rita were at the command center, but it's heavily defended, Webb reported to Hayes. How is the situation on the ground? Sir, the Kresh are starting to pull back from some positions, Hayes replied. I think they're getting worried about what's happening to their flagship. If you can take their command center, it might break their will to fight. The battle for the command center became a brutal room-by-room fight that tested every skill the humans had learned in their violent history. Webb led from the front, while his officers covered his flanks, and Morrison's security team provided. Suppressing fire. The Kresh fought desperately, but they were defending a fixed position against an enemy that specialized in adaptive tactics. Dr. Turner finally broke through the Kresh communication encryption and gained access to their fleet command systems. What he found was even better than they had hoped. The alien fleet was completely dependent on orders from the flagship, and without central coordination they were helpless. Captain, I'm in their communication system, Turner called out excitedly. I can send orders to their entire fleet. Give me 5 minutes, and I can turn their own ships against each other. Webb and Morrison fought their way to the final blast door, protecting the command center while Turner worked his technological magic. Behind that door waited Warlord Deknol and the key to ending this war. The alien commander had never lost a battle and wasn't about to start now. The blast door exploded inward. Webb charged into the command center with Morrison beside him. Warlord Deknol stood waiting with his personal guard units arrayed around him. The massive alien warlord was even more impressive in person, and his red eyes burned with hatred for the humans who had dared to challenge him. So the little Deathworlders finally reach me, Deknol snarled as he drew an enormous sword. I will enjoy killing you slowly, human. Your death will be remembered throughout the galaxy. Webb drew his sidearm, but knew bullets would be useless against the alien's heavy armor. This would have to be settled the old-fashioned way, with skill and courage. He had never fought an alien before, but humans had been killing dangerous predators for millions of years. We'll see about that, Webb replied as he prepared for the fight of his life. Earth doesn't produce quitters. The battle between human captain and alien warlord was short but vicious. Deknol was stronger and better armed, but Webb was faster and more adaptable. The human used every dirty trick he knew, while the alien relied on brute force and intimidation. In the end, human cunning defeated alien strength. As Warlord Deknol fell to the deck, his fleet lost its nerve and began surrendering. Turner's control of their communication systems completed the victory. By sending retreat orders to the remaining ships, the Battle of the Sahara was over, and humanity had won its first interstellar war. All Kresh forces, this is Captain Webb of Earth. He broadcast over the alien fleet channels. Your warlord is dead, and your fleet is defeated. Surrender now, and you will be treated according to human military law. Continue fighting, and you will share your leader's fate. The response was immediate. Kresh ships throughout the system began powering down their weapons and requesting turns of surrender. The warriors who had conquered 17 worlds had finally met an enemy they couldn't defeat. On Nasara's surface commander, Hayes received the surrender of the remaining Kresh ground forces. The aliens who had seemed invincible just hours before now looked broken and confused. They had never faced defeat before and didn't know how to process the experience. "Rita, how bad are our casualties?" Webb asked as he surveyed the captured. "Command Center. Sir, we lost 12 crew members and 30 Marines," Hayes reported solemnly. "The Velani lost thousands, but they're alive because of what we did here. It was worth the price." High Counselor Zaranel arrived at the Human Field Hospital to thank Dr. Young personally for saving so many Velani lives. The elderly alien leader had tears in her large dark eyes as she looked at the wounded humans who had fought for her people. "Dr. Young, your people gave everything to save ours," Zaranel said with deep emotion. "How can we ever repay such a debt?"